So now that you've actually gone through the exercise of figuring out what your cash flow would be and also the amount of money you'd be willing to leave invested, and you've got your assumptions in terms of costing of finance, in terms of costing of stamp duty, etc., what you've done is you've created a way in which you can actually make an estimate on how much you'd be willing to offer for this deal to actually work for you. And the way in which you would do it is you would work backwards from the value of the house. So let me give you a quick example of how this works and how you would actually calculate out your offer. Now, I understand this is going to be a long and drawn out calculation. Once you write it down, hopefully it will start to tie together and make a little bit of sense for you. Please bear in mind the TrustBrick system does all of this for you, so you do not have to worry, but it's important to understand how it works. So to be able to work out your maximum offer, what you would do is you would start with your done up value, or the value of the house in good condition. Okay, and then you would multiply that by the percentage the bank will lend you, your loan to value. Okay, your loan to value. So this is typically 75%. Now, once you've done that, you now have a set figure, okay, which is typically 75% of the value, very simply. At this point, then you're going to start deducting what's called all of your buying costs. Okay, buying costs. And once you've deducted all your buying costs, you're also going to deduct your refurbishment cost. And then finally, you're going to be adding this figure over here, which is the amount of money you're willing to leave invested in this deal. So money left invested. Okay. Now, once you've done this, this will give you your final maximum offer. Very simply, this is how it works. Okay, this is your maximum offer amount. Now, if we take a look in terms of what your buying costs are, we can take a look and I will give you some definitions just so you can tie the whole thing together. So your buying costs are things like legals, stamp duty, okay, brokerage, setup fees, so lending setup fees, surveys, which is one that I missed out earlier, valuations, one I also missed out earlier, finance, okay, and these are the typical costs you're going to be looking at. And then of course you've got your second legals, which is for refinance, second brokerage, second setup, and second valuation. Now, if I give you some assumptions in terms of how this would work, okay, then it will give you a nice picture in terms of how it is. So if we have our standard legals at 2,500, our stamp duty, let's just say in this instance is 3,000. Like I say, you'll be going online and researching it yourself. It's easy enough to find a calculator. Brokerage of 500, setup of 500, survey of 500, and believe it or not, it's 480 for the survey. So I'm not just putting figures from the air. These are actual figures that we work to. Valuations of 300. Okay, so your finance costs is how much. So a typical purchase, refurbish, refinance model, you'd normally be using finance for about 10 months. So you'd buy the house. After 6 months, you'd begin your refinance process, and by about month 9 or 10, your refinance ticks through. So you account for about 10 months worth of finance costs. Now, if this is 0.89%, okay, you'd have your 10 times your 0.89%, which in this instance is 100,000, or whatever your purchase price is. And this is sort of the interesting thing. You have to figure out what your purchase price is to figure out your finance costs, and this comes in a little bit later. But let's just say you agree a purchase price of 75,000. Okay, your finance costs would be 75% of that. Okay, because the lender will typically lend you 75%, and then you times it by 0.89%, 6.89%, okay, which equates to £500 a month, 500.63, okay. And then if you do that over the 10 months, it'll be 5,060, 5,006.35. That would be your finance costs in this instance. Okay, then you've got your second legals, which is typically around 1,000. Your second brokerage, which is also going to be around 500. Your second setup, which is also going to be around 500. And your second valuation, which is also going to be around 300. So this would be what we call your other costs. Now, if you put this all together, this would equate to 5, 5, 6, 6, 5, 7, 7, 8, 8, 8, 9, 8, 10, 1, 16, 1, so 16,106.35. Okay, so that would be your other buying costs. Okay, so 16,106. Now, if we take that into account in terms of our figures here, so we've got a value of 100k. So I'm just going to do the calculation here, times by the loan to value. Okay, gives you, or sorry, the loan to value, which is 75%. Okay, gives you 75k. And at this point, you then deduct your buying costs, and your buying costs, as we just saw, is 16,106.35. 106.35. Okay, deduct your refurbishment. Now your refurbishment at this point, once you're making your offer, you should already know. Let's just estimate your refurbishment to be 10,000. Fairly standard refurbishment cost at this instance, just to make it nice and simple. And then you deduct, or sorry, you add your money left invested, which was 31,350. 31,350. And that gives you your max offer, which is so 75,000 minus 16,106.35 minus 10,000 plus 31,350. Okay, which would give you a maximum offer based on the 10% return. If you remember, we're working on a 10% return or 10 years, a maximum offer of 80,243.65. 243.65. So if you get this deal agreed at this value, and of course your refurbishment comes in and your value comes in, okay, and everything goes as we expect at this point. So if you get this deal agreed at 80,243, providing your cash flow keeps rolling in as expected, as it should, you should get your money back in approximately 10 years' time. Okay, or you should get a 10% return on investment. Okay, that is very simply how you put together your offer. Now, if you consider this figure over here is the one that is most likely to change depending on the years or return you're looking at, and all you would do is you would then substitute that or change that figure over here, which would then change the offer amount. Now, for every penny that you spend less than this, of course, you will reduce the number of years and increase the return on investment you can expect to get from this deal. Okay, this is how you would formulate your offer. I hope this makes sense. I think it's pretty cool.